Painkillers, these evil little pills. In addition to their intended purpose, they also give you that everything's gonna be fine, man, just relax feeling. Just lay down in that comfy bed, man, stare at that phone screen for a few hours, do some online shopping. I shouldn't be making purchasing decisions late at night while sober, let alone high on codeine. On eBay. Mistakes get made. Anyway, fresh from the former Soviet Union, I bought a new drill. $30 for the drill, pretty cheap, plus $50 to ship it here from Lithuania, and then through customs and onto the front door of this capitalist pig. Invoice? I don't know what part of Europe you're from, Judith, but you have a lovely smile. Power cord is nice and flexible. Good for those cold Moscow winters. Neat. Switch is a little sticky. Smells like stale cigarettes and ozone. Gotta love the Cyrillic alphabet. It's basically just the Greek alphabet with a Slavic expansion pack, and, like Greek, it is completely unintelligible to real Americans like me who politely refuse to learn a second language. Soviet stuff has such style. A 5-year-old drew what he thinks a drill should look like, and they took that drawing to the factory. Sergey, here's your blueprint. Build for me this. We make unchanged for half-century. I used to buy a lot of cheap mechanical antique Soviet wristwatches from an eBay seller in the Ukraine, back before Putin put the Putin over there. Beautiful looking pieces, but they all ran like shit. I hope he's okay. If you're bored, search USSR watch on eBay. You won't be disappointed. This symbol means beware of snakes in pyramid hats. This, I believe, is the serial number. This is the chuck size, 9mm, or 3/8 on this side of the wall. This means 800 RPM, which is, of course, on 50 Hz, so we shall see what we get. 220 volts, 340 watts, 1.6 amps. This is the manufacturer, Bosch Tool Company. No, wait. That says Borscht Tool Company. Had to make at least one corny pun. It's in my contract. I doubt all my preconceived notions about the quality of life in the USSR are accurate. After all, propaganda existed on our side too. But you have to feel bad for the poor guy responsible for stamping the year, 1973, on these nameplates. Day after day after day. This is the symbol for double insulated. I knew it was a universal symbol, but I didn't know it was that universal. It's cool to see. Double insulation is quite important for metal-bodied tools. It just means there's a secondary insulation system inside the tool, so if any angry electrons escape, the body of the tool doesn't light you up. In the US, standards for double insulation are determined by the National Electric Code, and in Soviet Russia, let's just say I'm going to check the insulation before I plug it in and touch it. So, Siberian tiger in the room. It did not ship with any power adapter, of course. Europe doesn't have our fondness for political lobbyists, and, as a result, there's no 120 in Europe. Tinfoil hat time. The wire gauge you need is determined by amps, not volts or watts. Watts is power, and power is what determines your capacity to do work. And if there's one thing Russians and Americans both do too much of, it's work. And crystal meth. So, if you double your volts, you can get the same amount of usable power with half the amps, and therefore, you can use half the copper. When America was setting up its power grid, copper suppliers lobbied for 110, presumably because it's safer. Realistically, they sold twice as much copper. I mean, gun to my head, I'd rather stick my finger in an American outlet than a European one, because, 120 always hurts, but usually it only kills you if you happen to be standing at the top of a tall ladder when it bites you. So I guess it's safer? Anyway, there's no chance the country that still uses wrenches with fucking fractions on them was going to revamp its already established electrical standard just to conform to what a bunch of frogs, krauts, and redcoats were doing. So, here we are today, in 2024, with 120. Starting to wonder if I've worked on this one before. Sure looks like me. Yes, I know this is a 50 amp plug. Yes, I know the drill is rated for 1.6 amps. No, I don't need a fuse. This line cord I'm using is 13 gauge. It is my fuse. Turns out 13 gauge wire is way too thin to clamp down inside a 50 amp plug. So, yeah, Jesus take the wheel. We do have 240, of course, but it's not quite the same flavor. We use two 120 volt 60 Hz legs 180 degrees out of phase to make our 240. Forgive the jitters, frame rate is 24 because my scope is older than me. From ground to one side, 120 volt sine wave. From ground to the other side, 120 volt sine wave 180 degrees out of phase from the first. From one side to the other, however, a sine wave of double the amplitude. In layman's terms, 120 on one side and negative 120 on the other for a total of 240. In Russia, I believe, I've never been there, it's 230, 50 Hz on one side, and 0 volt neutral on the other. So basically the same voltage difference. Potato, potato. This should work. Famous last words. Then there's the pesky frequency issue. I doubt there's going to be any Sputnik-style electronics in here, so nothing sensitive. Just a coal-burning motor and a chunky mechanical switch. Extra chunky. In theory, it should take the 60 Freedom Hertz like a champ. Might spin a little faster, and it'll probably get a little warm with heavy use, but it'll be fine. Sticky switch. Fucking cool. So it's rated for 800 RPM, running on 50 Hz at 220. I've got it running on 60 Hz at 242 volts. It's a brushed motor, so I don't know if frequency makes a difference or not. I'm sure the extra 22 volts will add some RPM, so taking all bets. I'm betting 1,000 RPM. $1,800. I think my laser tack is reading the tape twice or something. It should be half that. I own more tachometers than testicles. Let's try contact tach. Same thing. What the hell? I have no clue who installed the nitrous on this thing, but it's running over 100% faster, and now I know why it smells like ozone. Those poor, sweet communist brushes. Let's see if it, drills. Luckily, it came with a chuck key. Of course not. This is the dullest bit I have. Seemed appropriate. I'm going to put old Rasputin here against some genuine American Southern pine from the heart of capitalism, the timber forest of Alabama. This thing's going to break my wrists. Longer power cord next time. Gonna have to figure out that sticky trigger. Anyone else want to see her naked? Got the Bakelite handle apart. M4 by 0.7 screws, in case you were dying to know. Switch is extremely sloppy. Just I wouldn't call it a drift pin. It's a vaguely round piece of steel. There's my sticky switch. Aw, cool as f***. I've never seen a switch like that. I've also never taken apart vintage 220-volt tools, so maybe this is super common and I'm just ignorant, but I love how simple and symmetrical this is. Oops. Got it, boss. I might have to check the tape on this one. Got it. This is the plastic backing plate. See how chewed up it is? That's why the switch is sticking. I'm not going to tell a bunch of dead Russian engineers how to design a tool, but maybe this piece should have been made out of sheet metal. Wait, sheet metal would short out the switch. Oh, blame that one on the painkillers. Back at the business end. I hate slotted screws. The only thing worse than Phillips, baby. It's all plastic inside. Surprising. I guess that's why it didn't zap me. Commutator is heavily used, but totally serviceable. What's under here? Start and run cap. Wait, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. We good. Carefuling. 250B, that's 250 volts. Not used to seeing capacitors rated so close to the design voltage of the tool. Usually there's a little bit of buffer. I'm running it on 242. This one says 220B. Look, I don't buy used eBay tools expecting them not to blow up. MK Phi translates to microfarads, and if you don't know what CCCP means, blame your history teacher. The brushes have been used up and replaced. You can tell because they used too small a screwdriver and chewed up the caps. There's a right tool for every job, and I don't have one either. Not sure if that's a two-piece conductor or if the solder joint failed. Oh, that's tight. I'm nervous that's going to break. Yep, it's a brush. Pick your jaw up off the floor. Take a look at the gearbox next. It's got a painted cast aluminum housing, and I'm sure this is lead-free paint. Fortunately, 2 of the screws were missing, so that'll save me some time. That's what the smell is. It's not cigarettes and ozone, it's cosmoline. Did some research. It's actually called solidol. It appears to be a medium viscosity oil, thickened with vegetable and animal fats. So it's crude oil and Crisco, I guess. Is that supposed to be a C-clip? It's not a C-clip. It's a retainer to hold this pin in. They were using a round pin as a key in a square-cut keyway. A little crude, but it seems to work. Getting strong AK-47 vibes from this thing. It sure smells like cosmoline. Little bushing here. Oh, wait. Nope, that's a ball bearing. No planetary gears, just a drive gear and some double reduction. Another bearing. No shielding or anything, but that's fine. It's worked this long. I don't know what those markings mean. No sealing on the case surface to keep the oil in or dirt out, but again, it's worked this long. Very strong AK-47 vibes here. Wait, if I pull that armature out, is this gonna screw up the brushes? Yeah, I better take those out. Pretty dirty, but hey, it's 50 years old. This was no toolbox queen. Someone used the snot out of this thing in the service of the motherland. Was that Germany? If you've ever shot an AK-47, this thing spins like an AK shoots. So crude and sloppy that you can't believe it works so damn well. This drill is going to run like shit longer than some modern drills will run, period. Another ball bearing with not an ounce of shielding, sealing, or lubrication for that matter. Not a lot of noise, vibration, and harshness engineers in the former Soviet Union, I suspect. So overall, plenty of sketch. But it is over half a century old, so is it janky because it's Russian or is it janky because it's old? Pretty sure the answer to that is yes. But let's see what my Yankee Doodle dandy grandfather was using to see if we were much better. From the year 1969, the year we went to the moon, allegedly, behold! Ain't no metric offshore parts on this craftsman. We didn't need millimeters to win World War II or go to the moon, and we sure as hell don't need it to build our wrist-breaking power drill. This represents the beginning of our capitalist society becoming spoiled. A reversing drill? What's next? What's next? Wireless electricity? If you know anything about AC motors, they're not like DC motors where you just swap the polarity and the motor spins backwards. AC motors spin the direction they were designed to spin even if you swap the wires around. Some AC motors I've seen use either a reversing gearbox or a fancy motor driver circuit to make reverse happen. But this just has a simple double-pole single-throw switch which sends power to a separate winding. Simple. The switch is much smoother, very strong return action, almost no slop. Look, it has rivets. Fantastic Western technology. It's a slider switch, not a plunger switch. Locking mechanism is much more confidence-inspiring, and I hate to point this out, but it's all made of metal. Much beefier brushes, but that's not the flex you think it is, because this is a 110-volt tool, so half the voltage, it needs twice the current. Twice the current, twice the brush. Makes sense. I hate Phillips screws. I think they might be worse than slotted, maybe. Ugh, this grease stinks. I think I prefer the Cosmoline. But it does seem to leave a much more uniform coating on all the parts in here, so it must have a lower melting temperature than animal fat. Same style gear reduction as the Ruski drill. Man, the Greeks invented planetary gear sets 2,000 years ago. Wonder what happened to them. Is that a bearing? Looks shielded. Nope, that's a bushing. I mean, a good bearing is probably better than a bushing, but a good bushing is better than a crappy bearing, which is what the Soviet drill has. This all fits together much more nicely. More bushings. I don't think there are any bearings in this drill. Stamped metal fan, don't stick your fingers in there. I'm going to take the brushes out before I break it. Be careful, it's learning. Looks like that Bakelite ring is getting hung up on the brush holders. They're just pressed in. Wonder if I can pull them out. Or push them out. Out she comes. Wow, it's tiny. I was expecting it to be double the size, not half the size. It's balanced, but no epoxy. That may be a modern thing. I might be just being unfair here. Honestly, it doesn't look that much better than the Russian one. Wait, is the Russian one balanced? Nah, but that's part of its charm. Another bushing at the tail end, and not much else to get excited about. I don't think it's presumptuous for me to say the Craftsman blows the Soviet drill out of the water. Or maybe it is, but I'm American. It. But I do get a kick out of how simple this is. How well it works with so much slop in it. I feel like you could drop this in a sandbox, hose it off with salt water, and it'll still break your girly American wrists. Russia, you beat us to space and you killed more Nazis, but we make better power tools than you. Na-na-na boo-boo, stick your head in doo-doo. America. Yeah. Now I gotta put all this crap back together. Thanks for watching, comrades.